tariffs on Mexico, Canada, and China, which are set to take effect at midnight tonight. Tomorrow will be Tariff Tuesday. But our North American allies are now vowing to strike back.
Fox Business reporter Lydia Hu has more for us. Hey, Lydia.
Hey, good morning there, guys. That's right. President Trump is making good on a campaign promise, imposing tariffs that start tomorrow on our biggest trading partners. Imports from Canada and Mexico will face a 25% tariff, with Canadian energy facing a 10% levy, and imports from China will have a 10% tariff. Some warn that these tariffs could mean higher prices for consumers, but President Trump said yesterday it will be worth it. Listen.
We may have short-term a little pain, and people understand that, but long-term, the United States has been ripped off by virtually every country in the world. We have deficits with almost every country, not every country, but almost, and we're going to change it. It's been unfair.
Meanwhile, Canadian officials are calling the tariffs economic warfare.
Action is utter madness. It is a betrayal of America's closest friend, of your ally, your neighbor, your best partner in the whole world. It is an act of economic warfare.
The United States imports more than $1.4 trillion worth of goods and services from these three countries. That's according to the Congressional Research Service. These products include everyday essentials like crude oil, cars, and auto parts from Canada. We import trucks, computers, and electronics from Mexico, and cell phones, toys, and clothing from China. Retaliation is promised. Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau already announced a 25% tariff on roughly $170 billion worth of U.S. goods. That's ranging from cosmetics to beverages, lumbers, and plastics. And the Mexican President, Claudia Sheinbaum, she's also set to announce tariffs today. So we're standing by for that information. And finally, China is pledging to initiate a case against the United States with the World Trade Organization. All of these countermeasures would come despite Trump's promise to increase tariffs further if retaliation is taken against American goods. So we'll see how all of that unfolds, guys.
And Lydia, we're starting to see how it's unfolding around the world. When you look at the global markets, Taiwan is down 3.5%, Tokyo and Seoul down 2.5%. Oil prices are rising. I think they're up $2 a barrel. And the VIX, which essentially is the fear index of Wall Street, is up 20%. So investors don't know what to make of this tariff business.
Yeah, that really seems to be the case. It's injecting a lot of uncertainty into the markets, and the markets never like that type of uncertainty. But I think it's also important to remind everyone why President Trump is doing this. This is about the flow of illegal migration and drugs, and he is committed to stop those two scourges on the United States, saying these tariffs will remain in place until our borders are secure and illegal drugs stop flowing into the country.
So, Lydia, what specifically does he want from these countries? He wants them to enforce the borders, close the borders, and when they do that, then he'll lift the tariffs?
That's what the White House has indicated, Ainsley. He says he wants 0 deaths from fentanyl. And just in the past week, I spent time up at the Canadian border in the province of Alberta to observe for myself what Canadian officials are doing. They insist that their border on the north is closed, and Mexico, we understand, is also working with the Trump administration. So we'll see how soon they can address these issues.
It was interesting, Lydia, over the weekend, Washington State Congresswoman was on another channel, and they say, aren't the tariffs bad? And she said, well, when it comes to lumber, we have enough lumber. We would love to start using our forests to be the lumber supplier for America, but there's too many restrictions on it. If you couple the lumber tariffs with allowing us to use our own forests, I'm okay with it. And it made me think in the big picture, is this a reconfiguring to try to get America to use American products here in America, from oil to gas to lumber that we have to our automobiles? And wouldn't that build up the middle class? You can't say that, because the reason why we have a special dispensation to do this is a 1977 law that said in case of emergency, you could put on tariffs. The emergency is fentanyl, and it's real. But essentially underneath is it the bigger picture to start making stuff here again.
I think that is spot on, Brian. I mean, when you look at all of the restrictions we have, take oil and energy production, for example. Our North America Free Trade Agreement has been in existence for decades. But what that's allowed the United States to do is rely on production from other places like Canada. And what we think about when we reconfigure how free trade could flow, maybe this could be a return to producing more in the United States and ensuring our energy dominance.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep. Lydia, final question. You know, I think when Donald Trump was talking about tariffs during the campaign, investors and just people in general, people up on Capitol Hill, thought essentially that he's talking about tariffs to negotiate something to get from both the countries. Well, his trade people aren't even in place. The Commerce Secretary hadn't even been confirmed yet. So he's doing this before that.
Yeah.
And the worry is that along the way, Americans could get hurt. I mean, you look at, he's going to put a 10% tariff on Canadian crude oil. 2 weeks ago, he declared an energy emergency. Looks like the cost of driving the car is going to go a little up. But I'm really worried about America's farmers. As a former future farmer of America president in Clay County, Kansas, I can tell you that the biggest exports are to Mexico and China from America's farmers.
Right. And, you know, it reminds me of a recent headline that I saw in the New York Times where, you know, some Trump administration advisors were reportedly encouraging the president to enforce and bring about and enact these tariffs first and negotiate later. So one thing I'm looking for, Steve, is to see how much we can move away from maybe these heightened levels of 25% and, you know, discourage any type of retaliatory measures being taken against our American farmers. One thing I would draw our attention to is the fact that when President Trump was first talking about the tariffs, he was calling for a 60% tariff on Chinese imports. What do we get? 10. It does seem like he is, you know, keeping the American consumer in mind.
Right. And keep in mind, Joe Biden left all the tariffs in place. He wanted, if they were so bad, why did he leave them there? Lydia, thanks so much. We'll check in again.
Thank you so much.